right, Christmas season's coming. I love Christmas season. I mean, I like Halloween, but Christmas is my favorite. And so I think when I think about Christmas, I think about when I was a kid and all the like Christmas movies and TV shows. And when I was a kid, I watched The Grinch. I loved The Grinch. I really liked The Grinch, the animated Grinch. And in that TV show, when I was a kid, it was the half-hour version, you know. It shows this like crotchety old, like his heart's small, and you know, he hates the Who's, and eventually his heart grows, and he's accepted by the Who's, and it's happy ever after. But in the animated version, they don't show you what made the Grinch the Grinch. They don't really show you what caused him to be Grinchy. But in the live action, if you've seen the live action one that Jim Carrey did, gosh, probably 10 years ago now, they show what made the Grinch the Grinch. In the beginning, when the Grinch was a little Grinch, he was green, and he stood out because none of the other Who's were green, and he had a crush on Martha May. He had a big old crush on Martha May, but so did Augustin Mayhew, who ends up becoming the mayor of Whoville. And so Augustus like bullied the Grinch and got everyone laughing at him, pointed out his greenness and his stinkiness, and got everyone to reject him. And so it was because of that rejection by all of his friends and whatever, that he left Whoville and went and lived in seclusion up on the mountain looking down at all those happy little Who's who had everything going for him. And it reminds me a lot of nowadays, we feel rejected, so we sit on social media and we see how everyone has everything going for them, and their lives are perfect because we've got that 10,000-foot view and we can't really see. So he sat back looking at how perfect their lives were and feeling so rejected, and that's really what caused him to hate them and to feel so ugly and worthless. And so the Grinch's story, what I love about the Grinch's story is the redemption comes from this little girl, Cindy Lou who doesn't care that he's green, who doesn't care that he's different, who just wants to love him and accept him the way she is. And then in the movie, she tries to get other people to see, like, look, he's a good guy, like he's redeemable. And it's through her love that the city starts to kind of see that he's not terrible, and then he's loved by the city, and his heart grows, and happy ever after. And I love that like it's this story, we don't maybe realize it, but it's a story of rejection. It's the story of what rejection can do to us. And so this story shows like one of the ways that people react to rejection. I think all of us at some point in our lives have been rejected in some way, shape, or form. We all have been. Right? And we all react differently. So the Grinch reacted by isolating himself. He reacted by pulling away, like, oh, if you're going to make fun of me, obviously no one loves me. I'm going to come over here where no one can reject me. So that's one way. Another way that people react sometimes is they become the rebel. Oh, you want to reject me? Well, I'll give you a reason to reject me. Some people deal with rejection by becoming driven by performance. Oh, you rejected me? Well, I'm going to become the best child, the perfect student, the perfect athlete, so that everyone will love me because of my actions. Some people, I've seen this with students, they become very apathetic. I don't care. Well, like, you smell, and no one wants to sit by you because you smell. I don't care. I don't care if you don't like me. I don't need anybody. And they become very, like, they shut down, they become very apathetic. And all of these are very typical reactions to rejection. Basically, I bought this, I didn't even think about the connection. I was teaching this, and I found this book by one of my favorites, Derek Prince. And I was able to read it, it's a quick read, this week. And I love, Derek says that one of the primary results of rejection is the inability to both receive and to communicate love. So when you're seriously rejected, you can't receive love. Like, people can be pouring it on you, but you're like, like, I can't do it. And you shy away from it, you run away from it. Or they don't know how to communicate. They've been rejected and their heart has been so broken that they don't know how to give that love out to others. They don't know how to speak love. They don't know how to give love to other people. And as a teacher, I see this in my kids. You know, I see when you hear these stories, especially, you know, as a teacher, you hear these stories and you're like, oh my gosh, like rejection can start so young. When I was learning about strongholds, they talk about one of the first ways the strongholds can get in is if a woman becomes pregnant and doesn't want the child. She's like, oh man, I didn't want to get pregnant. It's not the right time. I was reading Derek Prince's book. He said that they found that a lot of kids coming out of the whose moms were pregnant during the Depression were born with rejection because their mom, when the woman got pregnant, she's like, how am I going to possibly feed another child? And so she's mad about it, okay, or whatever. So like it can come in that way. That's one of the doorways to rejection is if a woman gets pregnant and she's like, I don't want this kid, but she has it anyways. As a teacher, I see all the time like kids whose parents say, man, I just wish you were never born. Like these parents who say these things to their kids, or parents, like we have kids who go home and their parents tell them you're worthless, you'll never amount to anything. Like I have a friend, he went in the Marine Corps, and he went to the Marine Corps because dad's like, pretty much the only thing you're good for is target practice. And so he went to the Marine Corps because he didn't think he could go to college. He didn't think he was worth anything else than just being a grunt who carries a gun. We've got kids whose parents have chosen drugs or the new boyfriend, girlfriend over them, and that causes rejection. We've got kids who their parents have just too many kids. And so if you're, like I have a student in my class right now, her mom's now a single mom again, and she has like 5 or 6 kids at home. So how can that child feel love when mom's working 2 jobs, and mom is I'm sure she's trying, like I'm not trying to blame the mom, she's trying. She's working 2 jobs so she has enough food to pay for house and food for her kids, but because she's always gone, she can't love her kids. Like how do you express love to your children if you're never around them? Or the parents who choose the power job, who work 80 hours a week at a power job and are never around for their kids. Like, of course that kid, whether or not, even though the parent is trying to provide for the kid, it's not like an active rejection. The child grows up feeling like, well, I'm not as important as my parent's job. Someone told me a story recently about a kid who, when they were 6 and they went to kindergarten, their dad's like, well, if you can go to school, you can work. And so this kid was told from the get-go, the only way you have value is if you're bringing them money. And so that's a type of rejection. So these are ways that rejection can get in early. And the parents may not necessarily realize, a lot of times the parents are dealing with their own junk. They're not trying to reject their kids, but they don't have, if the parent already doesn't have it to give, if the parent has an inability to receive and give love, how are they supposed to give it to their kids? Like if I can't receive it and give it, if I'm a dead battery, how do I give power to anything else? So some parents, they reject their children and they don't even mean to. They're not trying to. They're not like bad people, but they don't have it to give to their kids. So that's one way. It can come through friends and spouses or boyfriends, girlfriends. Like I remember when I was in 5th grade, my best friend of 5 years came up to me and she said, I don't want to be your best friend anymore. I'm going to go be friends with those people over there. And I was like, I was crushed. We've been best friends for 5 years. She'd been my longest standing friend and when I was 10. And for her to just say, I don't want to be your friend anymore, like, that really hurt, and it worked out. I found a better friend. But, like that kind of rejection, or if you've been in a dating relationship at some point in your life and been rejected by that person, that can really hurt. Like when back in my 20s, I worked for a cheerleading organization, and I've been built like this my whole life, pretty much. And so I'm working with all these girls who are 5'2", 100 pounds. So all the dudes are like swarming over these girls and giving them all the attention, but not me. So that left me feeling rejected, like there was something wrong with me. Like, oh, well, all these girls are getting all this attention and I'm not, so there must be something inherently rejectable about me. Maybe you've gotten it in your job. Like a friend of mine, her husband just keeps losing his job. So that has left him feeling rejected, and rejectable all the time. So rejection can come into us in all kinds of ways, in all kinds of places. So we all, I like to kind of start strong with multiple ones we can probably all relate to. I feel like all of us at some point have felt rejected. And it just depends on how deep it gets. But what I want to remind you of is the Creator. I learned a new word this week in my seminary class, the Panko Creator, which is like the Creator, like the Creator of everything, the Almighty. He made you. So rejection will sell me the lie that you're a mistake. It'll sell you the lie that you're not enough. It'll sell you the lie that there's something inherently flawed in you. There's something rejectable, that you're not worthy of being loved. But God says the opposite. So when I was dealing with my own rejection, I memorized this verse over and over and over because I would say this verse to myself over and over because this is what got me through when I was feeling fat and ugly and not enough. And in Psalm 139, it says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, Lord. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place." So as a girl who's got a little extra junk in her trunk, that one especially got me. My frame was not hidden from you. Like, my shape is not a mistake. Like, and I had to wrap my head around that I wasn't made mistakenly. God, my aunt used to, when I was a kid, my aunt used to have this thing that said, "God don't make junk." It was this little drawing of two little girls, and it's like, "God don't make junk." God don't make junk, right? Like, he handcrafted you. And I'm reading this Derek Prince book. He says that, I forget if it's a Greek or Hebrew root, what word, but one of the words in the Bible when it talks about God making us, it's the same word for when a poet writes a poem. The word create is the same word that they use to describe a poet writing poetry. So all of us, every creature on earth, is poetry to the Lord. We were not just made, we were crafted. We were intentionally put together as a beautiful thing with deep meaning, but the enemy doesn't want us to believe that. He wants us to believe that we're junk. But the Lord says, "I love you so much. I think you are so beautiful and so worthy of my love that I'll send my only son to die for you. I will turn my back on my only son so that you can feel loved, so that you can have a relationship with me again." That's how much every single person in this room is loved. That's how much every single person in this world is loved. He loves us so much that even if you were the only one, he still would have died for you. And then in Psalm, it says, "If my father and my mother abandoned me," so even if you've been rejected by your parents, the Lord still holds you close. Even if your parents don't have love to give to you, the Lord has it in spades. And something that I had to wrestle with personally is I'd be like, "Yeah, Lord, I know you love me. Like, I knew it here, but I didn't feel it." I'm like, "Lord, I don't feel it. I don't feel loved. You say it, I see these words, but they're not resonating in me." Or I'd be like, "Yeah, Lord, I know you love me, but I still want the love of all of this." And he's like, "No, you don't understand. My love should be this big. Their love should be this big. My love is the cake, their love is the icing." Okay, but I couldn't feel it that way. I didn't feel like the Lord's love was enough. And so I had to ask him, "Lord, help me to feel it, because I don't feel it. I don't feel loved that much by you. I know it in my head, but I don't really believe it in my heart." And so I had to ask him to help me to do that, because it was a struggle for me to feel that way. But then the nice thing, not nice, it was bad, but we're in good company. Jesus was rejected. In fact, poor Jesus, he grew up knowing he was the Messiah. He grew up knowing that all that, what we call the Old Testament stuff, all those prophecies from the Old Testament, he knew were going to be fulfilled in him. So when he read Psalm 118 that said, "The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone," he's like, "Great, I'm going to grow up and be rejected." Like, he knew going into it he was going to be rejected. And then it also says in Isaiah 53, "He was hated and rejected. His life was filled with sorrow and terrible suffering. No one wanted to look at him. We despised him and said he's nobody." So Jesus came into his ministry knowing that he would be hated and rejected, his life filled with sorrow and suffering, despised. And if you look at Jesus when he first went back to his hometown to preach, they're like, "Aren't you Joseph's son? Who do you think you are? Get out of here." And they're throwing rocks at him. He had to run out of town. And when he went to trial, we talked about when he came into Jerusalem, it was like, "Yay, Jesus!" But when he went to trial, there was nobody there to stand up for him. As they're saying all these terrible lies about him, no one stood up and said, no, wait, he healed my mom. No, wait, he brought my son back from the dead. No one stood up for him. In fact, Pilate knew that the court case, whoever, was a sham. He's like, all right, I got my out. All right, guys, I can give you Jesus, who's done nothing wrong, who's this great guy, who's innocent, or I can give you Barnabas, the murderer. I can give you Jesus, who's great, or I can give you Barnabas. They're like, "Give us Barnabas." He's like, "No, really, I can give you Jesus." Or or Barnabas? And they're like, give us Barnabas. And Pilate's like, he literally was like, okay, like, I'm washing my hands of this. You guys made this choice, I didn't. So the people rejected him at the trial. He went to the cross, except for his mom and Mary. I think it was his mom, Mary, and John that were at his hanging. But all those people who came to him for healing, all those people who sat on the hillside, those thousands and thousands of people who he fed miraculously, where were they when he was being tried? Where was his best friend when he was being tried and hung and murdered? Gone. So Jesus himself was rejected. And how did Jesus react to it? When Jesus came back from the dead, was he like, forget you guys, I'm going to go over here to like the people who will accept me? No, he went back to the very people who rejected him. He forgave them. He offered them mercy. And that just goes to show like he's immense grace. I mean, he was just so graceful. I just love Jesus. I know. It's obvious. So, when we come, if any of these things I've said to you today, you're like, oh, that's me. Like, ping, those little pings, Like, when you realize that we have rejection in our lives, it's like any other lie of the enemy. The enemy is trying to steal from you. The enemy is trying to make you believe that you're junk. He is trying to make you believe that you are rejectable, unlovable, not worthy of anything. You need to work hard. These are the lies he tries to sell to us. So when you realize that he's lying to you, when you realize you're being lied, that you've bought the lie, and I did, I tried to watch SportsCenter so that I could be sporty because I knew that's what guys liked. Even though I don't really care. Like, I like sports, but I don't really care. But I try to do all these things to make myself beautiful so that guys would want me. And I had to realize, like, no, I am what I am. Like, I've got to be myself. And so, like, I mean, for me, it was such a struggle. I would put, like, Psalm 139 on my mirror on, like, an index card and repeat it to myself. I still have a card on my mirror that says, no matter what you do, you are enough. You are loved immeasurably by the Lord no matter what. And I just had to keep that in places where I'd see to like kind of brainwash myself back into the truth because I had been brainwashed into the lie. And so when you realize that you've believed the lie, we do what we always do. We have to repent. So we just say something like, Lord, I'm realizing that I believed a lie. And I don't want to believe this lie anymore. I'm sorry, Lord, for believing that I'm junk. I'm sorry, Lord, for believing I'm not enough. I'm sorry, Lord, for rejecting your love. Because what a lot of us do when we feel rejected is we put walls up around ourselves. We think, I'll protect myself from rejection, so I'll put walls around myself so no one can love me. But the problem is if no one can love me, then you're not loved. And when you build a wall against love, God is love, so then you're building a wall against the Lord. So you have to say, like, Lord, I'm sorry for believing the lie that I'm not enough. I'm sorry for believing that you didn't make good stuff, that you made me badly. I am sorry, Lord, for believing this lie. That is a lie, and I'm not going to believe it anymore. Rejection, get out. I bind you, I rebuke you, get out of my life, and I accept the truth. And the truth is, I am God's handiwork. I am beloved. I was knit together on purpose. I am loved by the creator of heaven and earth, and that is enough. And if you can't say that, if you're like, Lord, I know that that's what I should say, but I just can't, I'm not feeling it, then say, Lord, help me believe it. Help me to recognize that. And then just keep reminding yourself, if you got to memorize those Bible verses, if you got to put them in prominent places until you can truly believe, I am loved. I am worth it. I am enough. I am handcrafted. You've got to replace the lies with the truth and invite the Lord into your heart to do that. And eventually, when you get to the point where you can believe it, the Lord may lead you to a place of trying to figure out where that got into your life. Sometimes we can we can chop the weed off, but the root's still there. So once we get healthy enough that we can deal with it, then we allow the Lord to get to the root of that. And there's this really great book. The second book is the one I was talking about earlier. But the first one is, there's this book by Greg Boyd called Seeing is Believing. And it's about when you realize you have spiritual trauma in your life, like getting to the root of that and getting it out. Like the whole book is about using your imagination to like imagine yourself with the Lord, to talk to the Lord, to hear his voice, and to get to a place of healing. And that book just like really resonated with me. Like, you know, he shows how in certain situations he took people back to these traumatic events in their life, and how to imagine that Jesus was there and heal those memories, to heal the hurt that came from stuff like traumatic experiences earlier in their life. So sometimes we have to get to the root of it and allow the Lord to tease that root out and to heal the place where that was. You know, like I think about, there's a song called Pieces by Stephanie Gretzinger, and she talks about how the Lord sees all the shattered pieces of your heart, and he knows not only where they go, but in what order they get put back together. And so we have to let the Lord take the shattered pieces of our heart and put it back together in the right order and in the right way. But we have to invite him in to do that. So, rejection's a jerk. Don't believe him. Remind yourself of the truth. Every single one of you in this room, every single human on this earth was handcrafted on purpose as poetry by the Lord and is worthy of being loved immeasurably. When you come back to the Lord, when you come to the Lord, he runs to you. He wraps you up in his arms. He throws the good robe on you. He puts the ring on your finger. He loves you that much, no matter what. No matter if you're a sinner, no matter what your body looks like, no matter how much you perform or don't perform, he loves you immeasurably. And we've got to remember that truth and replace that truth from the lie that we are not worth his love. And all of God's people said, amen. If any of you need prayer or have not given your lives up to the Lord and want to do that, you're welcome to do that during this song. The song is God So Loved the World, number 350.
No, that's not it.
That's not it. 349. 349.
Verse 1.
Oh, good. She has the lyrics.